So Socrates has heard secondhand from the oracle that he is the wisest man in all of Athens, and he thinks this is crazy. He's not wise, he's not smart, he doesn't know all that much. He decides he needs to put this to the test, because the only way this could be true is if he's the absolute wisest person, because everyone else knows even less than he does, and he really only knows one thing. All he knows is that he doesn't know anything. So everyone else must know even less. So he decides he's going to test this theory, and so he's going to talk to three of the biggest, most awesome, important groups in Athens. So he's going to start with the politicians. And much like you might expect with the politicians of today, he finds that they're full of hot air. They don't know a single thing. They talk a great game, right? They sound like they know a whole lot. They can talk about anything. It ends up they don't know a single thing. When he pushes them for details, they just sort of hem and haw and really can't tell him anything. So he decides that the politicians, no good. They don't know anything. So Socrates is definitely wiser than the politicians. Next he goes on to the poets. And the poets, he knows they compose beautiful art, and he says, well, yeah, there is that. At the very least, right, they can compose beautiful poems that lots of meaning, very deep, fantastic art. But they're sort of like the politicians in that when you ask them what they mean, they don't know. So even though they can put these big, sweeping, meaningful things down on paper, they don't actually know what they're talking about. So Socrates decides that, well, okay, fine, so they make better art than I do, but they still don't know anything. The craftsmen are sort of the same deal, right? The craftsmen all are really good at their trade, right? So the carpenters do great carpentry, the blacksmiths work with metal really well. They're all better at those things than Socrates, but these guys all also think that they know a lot more stuff. So the craftsmen, they also think they'd be great politicians or great soldiers or great poets, things like that. So they think they're smarter than they are too. So Socrates decides, well, yeah, I guess I must be wiser than all these people. Because sure, they do, things. The politicians speak better than I do. The poets write better than I do. The craftsmen craft better than I do. But at least I know my own limits. I know that I don't know all that much, and these guys all think they know way more than they do. As you might expect, the craftsmen and the poets and the politicians aren't real happy with Socrates openly, publicly declaring that they're all idiots. So things don't go so well. One of the ways things don't go so well is that Meletus, who's a representative of one of these groups, Socrates is basically charged by a representative of the politicians, one from the poets and one from the craftsmen. And so Meletus is the one that he decides to talk to at trial. And so he's one of these angry people at Socrates. And so he's charging Socrates with two big things. The first is corrupting the youth, and the second is impiety in the form of atheism. Socrates decides, well, it worked before when I talked to you. I show the politicians they don't know anything, so let's try again. So he asks Meletus about this charge of corrupting the youth. All right, well, if I corrupt the youth, if you're so smart, Meletus, you should be able to tell me not only who corrupts the youth, but who improves them. So who is it that makes the youth better? And Meletus gives this whole list. It's the judges, it's the jury, and it ends up that he decides every single person in Athens except Socrates. Every single person improves the youth. Socrates says, wait, this cannot be true. Think about other experts. Think about other kinds of things we want to improve. So he compares this to, like, training horses. It's certainly not true that every person who would try to train a horse without being an expert would make a horse better, right? You would end up injuring the horse by working it too hard, or you would make it fat and lazy, right? This wouldn't go well. You need experts to train horses, so only a few people make them better, most people make them worse. He says, this is crazy, Meletus. It can't be that every single person is an ideal mentor for the youth. It must be that some people are good, probably relatively few of them, and most of them are bad. You're crazy, this is just crap, forget it. He's also going to challenge Meletus on the charge of atheism. Because, right, so Meletus is just charging Socrates with impiety. And so Socrates says, well, okay, what do you mean by impiety? Is it that I'm inventing false gods, or is it that I'm an atheist, right? These are two very different charges. Meletus says, Socrates, you're an atheist. And Socrates says, well, that's crazy too. How could I be an atheist if I believe in all these divine things, right? I just told a story about the gods and the oracle, so there's a divine thing. I also believe in spirits and demigods and gods. I believe in all sorts of divine things. You're crazy, Meletus, if you think that I'm an atheist. In fact, this is so crazy that you must just be joking. You are pulling the court's leg. You're not being serious. You're just sort of playing this big practical joke. This is nonsense. And so he's trying to just publicly shame Meletus. What it actually does is it infuriates him and all of his buddies, many of whom are judges or on the jury. So not the best of plans.